This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll learn about skeletal dysplasias. You can get a question on this as a short notes. Sometimes, very rarely, you will be asked to mention about skeletal dysplasias, or individual dysplasias can come as a short notes. First, we'll go through the normal anatomy of the bone, and then you will understand how the dysplasias are classified. I hope you're able to hear.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So we'll go through normal bone anatomy, introduction to dysplasias, classification, and specific disorders. There are around 206, 208 bones in the body. There are two types of bones: cortical bone and cancellous bone. The cortical is a stronger structure; it is compact in nature, whereas cancellous is spongy, trabecular bone. Okay. You should not confuse the cancellous bone with bone marrow. Bone marrow is different. Cancellous bone is the softer part or the spongy part. Cortical bone is compact. You all know the microanatomy of the bone. It is composed of a central Haversian canal, and concentric lamellae are present all around it, which contain the osteoblasts and osteocytes. So Haversian canal is the center which contains the blood vessels, lymphatics, and nerves. Concentric lamellae with lacunae contain the osteocytes. Here you can see the interconnections between the Haversian canals, where blood supply to the bone is spread out, and you can see the concentric lamellae in a 3D structure. That is the structure of the bone. So cancellous part is the spongy bone, which is the lattice work of thin plates of bone called trabeculae. Trabeculae, they are seen in X-ray also, faint lines inside the bone. They are found in ends of the long bones and flat bones. So here the microstructure little varies, which is largely spaced the canaliculi and osteons. There are true osteons, but the structure is little weak in the cancellous bone. Coming to cells, mesenchymal stem cell differentiates into proteoblast and then osteoblast and then to osteocyte. So osteocyte is non-functional. It only gives a structural support. Osteoblast is the bone forming cell. And osteoclast is formed from the hematopoietic stem cell, monocyte macrophage that differentiates into a pre-osteoclast and then osteoclast. Osteoclast resorbs the bone. So osteoblast forms the bone, where you can see, and osteocyte maintains the bone, makes up to 90% of the cells in the mature skeleton. Osteoclast is the cell that resorbs the bone. It is multinucleated with irregularly shaped giant cells. You also have a ruffled border, which is the histological landmark or identification for the osteoclast. Again, I will repeat: osteoblast forms bone. Osteocyte is the inactive cell which maintains only in the, that is the skeletal structure, and osteoclast is resorption of the bone. This is important. You should be clear on this. Bone matrix is composed of organic type 1 collagen, proteoglycan, osteocalcin, growth factors, and inorganic calcium hydroxy apatite. Okay, so all your vitamin C, whatever you take, vitamin C is a precursor for collagen. So collagen and proteoglycans are found from your vitamin C, and calcium, which you take from your food, and also calcium supplements. The calcium will go into bone and form calcium hydroxyapatite. Bone remodeling is a what do you say? It is an equal balance between formation and resorption. So if you have equal bone formation and bone resorption, bone formation by osteoblasts and bone resorption by the osteoclasts, then you have a normal bone remodeling. Like skin, you get remodeling of the skin, and bone also has remodeling. If there is an imbalance, you will have disorders. So apart from the types of bones and cortical cancellous and types of cells, osteoblast, osteocyte, and osteoclast, you should also know ossification, whether intramembranous or endochondral. Intramembranous is direct bone formation seen in flat bones like skull and clavicle and mandible. In endochondral, like limb bones, the bones, first the cartilage is formed and then bone starts depositing on that. So we'll see why this is important. So as I told you, membranous ossification, osteoid or the bone formation is directly laid on the mesenchymal tissue, like flat bones of the skull, mandible, and clavicle. Any problem in the membranous ossification will cause cleidocranial dysostosis. Cleido is clavicle, cranial is skull bones, dysostosis, a derangement in the normal ossification. So cleidocranial dysostosis is a fault in membranous ossification. You can get that as an entrance bit. Membranous ossification, the cells from the cranial neural crest, somites and lateral plate mesoderm. You can simply remember mesenchymal cells, and osteoblast directly forms on that. So osteoblastic differentiation and bone formation over mesenchyme, that is membranous ossification. If there is a cartilage formation and then bone formation, which occurs in almost all bones of the body, then that is called endochondral ossification. So endochondral means inside the cartilage. The bone forms after cartilage forms. So endochondral ossification, normal all bones except skull where you have membranous, otherwise all are endochondral ossification. If there is a problem in endochondral ossification, you get achondroplasia. So we will discuss on the achondroplasia. So if you know these basics, you will be able to easily understand what happens in the other dysplasias. So here you can see a mesenchyme getting condensed into cartilage. Cartilage will then have ossification centers. Primary is in the center, and peripheries you have secondary cartilage ossification center. So bone formation occurs in the cartilage or after the cartilage, so it is endochondral ossification. So you all know the parts of the bone: epiphysis, metaphysis, and diaphysis. Middle long segment is called diaphysis. Ends of the bone are called epiphysis. Metaphysis is the area in between. So metaphysis is the area where growth plate is present. There you can see a gap between the epiphysis and the upper part of diaphysis. So that is the gap, is the physeal plate or the growth plate. It is cartilaginous, so you don't see any whitish structure. So it is translucent. This growth plate, as we already have learned before, it has 4 zones: germinal or reservoir zone, proliferative zone where the cells are proliferated, hypertrophic zone where the cells increase in size, and then 4th zone is zone of calcification. So these zones are important because from the upper side to the, so towards the joint is the germinal zone, towards the diaphysis is the zone of calcification. So you have different problems in different areas. In the germinal zone or the reservoir zone, if there is any defect, that leads to lysosomal storage diseases like Gaucher's disease. In proliferative zone, you have achondroplasia. Achondroplasia is a problem in the endochondral ossification. And hypertrophic zones, you have enchondromas and mucopolysaccharidosis. So this is the structure of the growth plate, where you can see the articular cartilage area. That side is the reserve zone or the germinal zone, and then you have proliferative zone, maturation zone, and then zone of provisional calcification. So calcification occurs towards the shaft of the bone, okay, not towards the joint but towards the shaft of the bone. So that is your arrangement of cells. So again I am repeating: germinal zone, proliferative zone, hypertrophic zone, and then zone of calcification. So skeletal dysplasias are also known as osteochondrodysplasia. So this is a disorder affecting development of the bone and cartilage. Osteo is bone, chondro is cartilage, dysplasia is the disorder that is affecting the bone and cartilage. So they can be classified into bony dysplasias and cartilaginous dysplasias. In bony dysplasias, you can have either decreased bone formation seen in osteogenesis imperfecta, where the bones are weak and they fracture very easily and they deform. In increased bone formation, you have osteopetrosis and meloriostosis, which we will discuss. Osteopetrosis is also called as marble bone disease. Meloriostosis is known as candle wax disease. And abnormal bone formation is seen in fibrous dysplasia and neurofibromatosis. Coming to cartilaginous dysplasias, you have achondroplasia, diaphyseal eclasis, and multiple enchondromatosis. Okay, these also we will discuss in detail. Coming to achondroplasia, achondroplasia is the most common type of dwarfism. Usually, you must have seen some people in the railway stations or somewhere where you have a short kind of a stature. Their IQ is normal and they behave normally like adults, but they have shortened limbs. Okay, so they are mostly employed as clowns. It is autosomal dominant disorder with 2 in 10,000 live births. So here achondroplasia, if you can remember, endochondral ossification occurs in limbs and endochondral ossification is defective. So the limbs are short, the head is normal or big or according to the age, because head, skull bones, mandible and clavicle, they form by membranous ossification, which is normal in achondroplasia. Endochondral ossification is defective. So achondroplasia, the limbs are short. So there is disproportionate dwarfism. The short limbs are shorter in proportion to the trunk. So it is called disproportionate dwarfism. So other features are they are short limbed. This hand looks like a starfish. The size of almost all fingers are equal. The head is large and the nose is flattened. There may be kyphoscoliosis or lordosis and spinal canal stenosis. They may present with backache. When you see an MRI, you will have canal stenosis. They'll have frontal bossing, prominence of the frontal area, and trident hand. Their IQ is normal, their behavior also normal, and they can get married also and they can have children. So only the limbs are short due to endochondral ossification defect. When you see their X-ray, vault is large, the base of the skull is short, vertebra may be scalloped, narrow spinal canal, pelvis, the cavity of pelvis is small, and the pelvis is called champagne glass pelvis. Treatment, usually we don't there's no requirement of treatment unless the patient has any symptoms. Limb lengthening procedures can be used to increase height using Ilizarov technique, and canal stenosis sometimes may be needed. Decompression may be needed at later stages. This is the Ilizarov. Using Ilizarov external fixator, you can lengthen the short limbs in a staged manner. You don't do all at once, but you can do two legs at a time or two hands at a time. So that is the achondroplasia. So to summarize, achondroplasia is the common cause of dwarfism. It is a problem in the endochondral ossification. The limbs are short, the head is normal, the IQ is normal. They have canal stenosis as a problem. They can have a back pain, and their hands and feet are short. Frontal bossing is present. Their IQ is normal. So if you remember that, trident hand and champagne glass pelvis are the other features. So Ilizarov can be used for lengthening. So I'm confident that you are able to understand achondroplasia. It is a defect in endochondral ossification. Coming to osteogenesis imperfecta. Osteogenesis imperfecta is also known as brittle bone disease or glass bone disease. It is an autosomal dominant inheritance, same like achondroplasia. This is also autosomal dominant. The defect is in type 1 collagen. COL1A2 is the real collagen that is defective. COL1A2. So that is type 1 collagen problem. So collagen is seen in many parts of the body, like bones, where you have osteopenia and fractures. Teeth, tooth decay. We told you the collagen forms about 40% of your bone, 60% by calcium hydroxyapatite, 40% by the collagen and proteoglycans. So you need collagen for in all these areas as well. In teeth, patients have dentigerous imperfecta, that is tooth decay. Ligaments, there may be laxity of ligaments. Sclera, bluish discoloration of sclera. Why bluish discoloration? Is because the collagen is deficient and the sclera becomes so thin that it becomes transparent. So the visible choroid behind the eye is visible through the sclera. So the white portion of the sclera is translucent and it shows the choroid. So that is why you see a bluish appearance in the whitish part of the eyes. So that is due to thinning of the sclera, and thinning of the dermis also occurs. So the all areas collagen is present. So collagen 1, collagen 1 is defective in osteogenesis imperfecta. Again an entrance bit. So severe form, the child is born with multiple fractures and usually doesn't survive. In milder forms, frequent fractures from trivial trauma. Even while going on the steps, the patient without any fall can have a fracture. Fractures unite readily but with deformities. So the fractures, they unite but they are deformed. So they are called secondary deformities. And that leads to malunion and joint contractures. Here you can see in the image, multiple times the femur and tibia have fractured and the right limb has become so crooked that it is impossible to walk on that limb. So you can see here a child with bilateral femur fractures. There is nice callus formation and they heal, but they don't heal in a normal alignment. So they become bent and then they heal. So what is the treatment? Usually bisphosphonates in little elder people. And we have to prevent fractures by using orthosis. If they come to you with one fracture, you should warn them that many fractures can occur and you should be giving them some kind of a brace to prevent fractures. So, and if there is multiple deformities, multiple level and multi-angle deformities, you have to use what is known as shish kebabs technique, where we cut the bone wherever there is deformity and then align all of them with an intramedullary rod. So sometimes we use a telescopic nails where it is fixed on one side like a screw like thing, and then the distal end moves with growth, and then that will cause self elongation in the nail can grow inside the child. So that is nothing but telescoping effect with the growth. So next, so again I'll brief the osteogenesis imperfecta, brittle bone disease. Defect is collagen type 1. You can have other symptoms like bluish discoloration of eyes, dentigenous imperfecta, laxity of ligaments, and thinning of the skin. They present to the orthopedic OPD with multiple fractures or deformities due to old multiple fractures which have healed with malunion. So they have difficulty in walking due to multiple fractures and deformity. What you need to do, you have to prevent the fractures by giving them bracing, and you have to give them medication like bisphosphonates and treat them with osteotomies, corrective osteotomies, and intramedullary fixation. Next, coming to osteopetrosis is marble bone disease. It is also known as Albers-Schonberg disease. So it is an imbalance between osteoblastic, osteoclastic activities with decreased resorption. Skeletal system becomes dense but brittle with tendency for recurrent fractures. So the bones involved are cranial nerve palsies due to skull is involved, and they can present with blindness, deafness, or facial palsy. Neural foramen gets occluded, and you can get cranial nerve symptoms. Pancytopenia, because the marrow is infiltrated, you get anemia and recurrent infections. Hepatosplenomegaly, because the marrow usually is the other side, the blood forming area, then extramedullary hematopoiesis occurs in the liver and spleen. So you have hepatosplenomegaly and recurrent fractures. And typical finding is rugger jersey spine, where you have alternating black and white like a rugby jersey. That is the shirt used in rugby. So that is called rugger jersey spine. You have alternating whitish and blackish bands. Okay, so this space is also a black line, and end plates are white, and again body is black. So you can have a similar picture. So here you can see the marrow is completely infiltrated. Totally there is a whitish discoloration. So you have all sclerosis. So osteoblastic activity is more, and the marrow is infiltrated. So self-limiting, usually you have to treat the complications like fractures and anemia. Bone marrow transplantation is the treatment. So again, I will summarize. Osteogenesis imperfect, osteopetrosis is marble bone disease. Imbalance between osteoblastic and osteoclastic activity, where there is more bone forming activity. The bones are very dense, but where they are very brittle. And neural foramina can be blocked by increased bone formation, and they can have cranial nerve palsies. Anemia, because marrow cavity is infiltrated. Extramedullary hematopoiesis, hepatosplenomegaly, rugger jersey spine, and you have a marrow completely obliterated with sclerosed bone. Bone marrow transplantation is the treatment. Next, coming to fibrous dysplasia. Fibrous dysplasia is bent bone disease. The bone progressively is replaced by fibrous tissue. And bent bones because of shortening and recurrent pathological fractures. There are two types: monoosteotic fibrous dysplasia and polyosteotic fibrous dysplasia. Monoosteotic is usually one bone involved. Polyosteotic, more bones are involved. Most common bone to be affected in fibrous dysplasia is the proximal end of femur, tibia, and sometimes mandible. It is seen in children and adolescents, and they present with pain, deformity, and pathological fractures. X-rays, you can see a bent bone with lesions, lytic lesions which are expansile and with ground glass appearance. That is typical. You can have an entrance, PG entrance bit need. Ground glass appearance is seen in fibrous dysplasia. Bent bones like shepherd crook's deformity, like a walking stick, it looks like that. So that is called shepherd's crook deformity, is seen in fibrous dysplasia. Smaller lesions and which are confined to bone, no need of treatment. But if there are larger lesions and they are causing deformity, curettage and bone grafting. And if there is more deformity, you need to do a corrective osteotomy. So there is McCune-Albright syndrome, where it is a cluster of polyostotic fibrous dysplasia, precocious puberty, and skin pigmentation. So this is the syndrome associated with fibrous dysplasia, McCune-Albright syndrome. So fibrous dysplasia is fibrosis, bone replaced by fibrous tissue. Common is proximal femur, shepherd's crook deformity, expansile ground glass appearance in the X-ray, small lesions, no treatment, deformities, corrective osteotomy, curettage and bone grafting of the tissue associated with McCune-Albright syndrome. So coming to skeletal dysplasias, usually skeletal dysplasias are classified into osteochondral dysplasia, where the bone and the cartilage. So decreased bone formation is osteogenesis imperfecta. Increased bone formation is osteopetrosis, maloriostosis. Abnormal osteoid formation is fibrous dysplasia, which we have discussed. Cartilaginous dysplasias are achondrodysplasia, achondroplasia, diaphyseal eclasis, and multiple enchondromatosis. So we have covered achondroplasia, osteogenesis imperfecta, osteopetrosis, fibrous dysplasia. Next, coming to multiple hereditary exostosis. Okay. So these are nothing but osteochondromas. Osteochondromas are cartilaginous outgrowths coming from the physeal area or physeal region or metaphyseal region. They are most common and least disfiguring skeletal dysplasia. They are autosomal dominant in inheritance. You will have patient will come with small bumps around the knee or in the proximal shoulder. So you have to also ask for family history. Usually the father also will have similar lesions. So they can present even in spine or any part of the body, but usually more common in the knee region and shoulder region. So usually patients are short statured and irregular hard prominence are seen in the ends of the long bones. They are associated with deformities. If you have a osteochondroma in the elbow, you can have deformity or bowing of the radius, genu valgum, etc. So they can be sessile or pedunculated. Here in the bottom, in the knee joint X-ray, you can see here is a sessile. So the part of the metaphysis and the bone marrow is also extending into the lesion with a cartilaginous cap. So cartilaginous cap is not seen in an X-ray, but you can see the projection. So if it has a stalk like this in the upper femur, then that is called pedunculated. If there is no stalk, then it is sessile osteochondroma. If they are multiple, it is called multiple hereditary osteochondromas or exostosis. So the most common complaint or most common problem with osteochondromas are bursitis. So there is irritation of the tissue over the tumor. So that causes irritation of the tissue over the tumor, that is bursitis. Other problems are mechanical restriction of movements. You can have a blocking of knee movements due to the osteochondroma, and if it is on the lateral side, you can have compressive neuropathy of common peroneal nerve, or you can also have malignant transformation. If the tumor is a long standing and it is not removed, you can have the chondrosarcoma of the cartilaginous cap, like shown in the proximal femur in the X-ray. And pathological fracture can occur at the peduncle area of the osteochondroma. See here, you can see a upper tibial osteochondroma. We have to excise the exostosis. Extra periosteal resection is the treatment. Multiple enchondromatosis is Ollius disease. Enchondroma is different, where you have a cartilaginous tumor inside the bone marrow. If you see swellings of the finger, you can most probably be correct if you say it is an enchondroma. Enchondroma is inside the cartilage or inside the bone, there is cartilage tumor. So enchondromas mostly affect the hand, and multiple enchondromas are known as Ollier's disease. Ollier's disease is multiple enchondromas. Here you can see hand lytic lesions of multiple fingers. You can see the swellings in the clinical picture as well as in the X-rays. What we do, you usually curettage and you remove that tissue and you have to place bone graft. So multiple enchondromatosis. Maffucci syndrome is enchondromatosis with cavernous hemangiomas, which have more propensity to form cancer malignant transformation. Coming to cleidocranial dysplasia, that is a defect in membranous ossification, which is also autosomal dominant. Most commonly involved are clavicle and facial bones. As I told you, cleido is clavicle, cranial is cranial bones. So they are they occur due to defect in the membranous ossification. The skull is proportionately larger compared to the face, and there is parietal bossing, delayed closure of fontanelle, and dental problems. Clavicle is absent, unilateral or bilateral. So if the patient doesn't have clavicle, you can approximate both shoulders. Okay. So what you see here in the X-ray is the above the shoulder, above the humerus is the spinous process, the spine of the scapula. This is the scapula. But if you can carefully see, there is no clavicle. Usually clavicle is here in this region. So you have absent clavicles, which can bring both shoulders together. So cleidocranial dysplasia, it is a defect in membranous ossification, and you have absent clavicles and abnormal skull. Patients are usually asymptomatic. Dental problems may need surgery. Coming to meloriostosis. Meloriostosis is candle bone disease. You can see in pictures, I will show you. There is altered bone deposition. More bone is formed, and outside the cortex also, like dribbling wax appearance, it is present. So they become hyperdense due to overgrowth of the cortical bone. So here you can see in the middle part of the femur, where you have thickened cortex. Okay, it is like dribbling candle wax. Okay, so that is called meloriostosis. Irregular patches of sclerosis, which are looking like candle wax drippings. Okay, it is easy, very easy. If you have an X-ray, you can easily diagnose this as meloriostosis. Usually asymptomatic. Sometimes if there is severe pain, you can give a sympathetic block. Usually they don't present with any other problem. This is important. Congenital pseudoarthrosis of tibia. It is a familial condition, non-ossified lesion in tibia in the middle and distal 1/3. It is associated with neurofibromatosis in 40% cases. So there is anterolateral bowing of tibia. Usually the treatment is you have to correct the deformity, you have to remove the pseudoarthrotic part, and you can use Ilizero is the best treatment for that, and you can do a lengthening also after resection of pseudoarthrosis. Paget's disease of bone, where as described by Sir James Paget, It is also known as osteitis deformans. Osteitis is inflammation of the bone. Some say it is a slow viral disease where virus can cause the problem, and deformans is deformity of the bone. Osteitis deformans. The virus attacks the osteoclasts. They become giant osteoclasts, and there is osteoclastic activity. So there are stages where there is a lytic stage, there is a mixed stage, and there is a burnout stage. So in the lytic stage or the osteoclastic stage, there is more a form of more lysis of the bone, and in mixed you have both areas of lytic and blastic areas, and then you have a burnout stage where it is more of a blastic stage. So usually more than 50 years of age. In my whole 5 years, I have seen only 2 patients of Paget's disease. So above 50 years, they complain of bone pains, bowing and thickening of the affected bone, frontal bossing of the skull. So X-rays are usually taken, biochemical markers, increased alkaline phosphatase is seen, and bone scan extent of activity of the disease can be seen. Here you can see osteoporosis circumscripta, where it is only in a earlier stage, there is only lytic lesion. In late stage, you have cotton wool spots, that is mixed lesion, where you have alternating areas of lytic and plastic areas. So here you have a lytic area and a sclerotic area, alternating areas. So that is typical of Paget's disease. You also have picture frame vertebra, where end plates are, and ivory vertebra, where there is increased sclerosis of the one vertebra, ivory vertebra or picture frame vertebra. So bone formation, serum alkaline phosphatase is increased, osteocalcin is increased, serum N-terminal peptide. So this is important in Ames. This thing. So in your Ames bits, you can find this table where you need to learn which are the markers in bone formation and bone resorption. So in early stages of Paget's, you will have more resorption, bone resorption markers. In late stages of Paget's, where you have bone formation, you will have ALP, osteocalcin, and all. So in Paget's also, if you take a PET scan, so bone scan, you have increased uptake. Okay, so you can know which bones are affected. Complications are cranial compression, deafness, spinal stenosis, pathological fractures, osteoarthritis, high output cardiac failure. Because of high bone turnover, it can lead to a high output cardiac failure due to local blood supply, increased local blood supply. And subclavian steal syndrome, you all know. Osteosarcoma can occur in long-standing Paget's disease. Treatment is bisphosphonates, risedronate, palmidronate, etidronate, alendronate. Calcitonin. In osteoporosis, we give nasal calcitonin, but in Paget's disease, we give injectable subcutaneous calcitonin. Subcutaneous calcitonin is the treatment for Paget's, but the vice versa doesn't work. So in osteoporosis, you have to give only nasal calcitonin sprays, and in Paget's disease, you have to give injectable calcitonin. So your nasal calcitonin won't work in Paget's. That is also an entrance bit where calcitonin should be given as a subcutaneous injection in treatment of Paget's disease. If there is any problem, surgical correction of deformity or fracture should be done. Coming to almost we'll end neurofibromatosis. You all know neurofibromatosis type 1, type 2, autosomal dominant. You have criteria where you have more than 2 neurofibromas or more than 2 axillary freckling, capillate spots, pseudoarthrosis of sphenoid dysplasia, Lisch nodules. Those are the hematomas in the iris, and optic nerve glioma, and first degree relative with neurofibromatosis. Neurofibromatosis can present with kyphoscoliosis and multiple bone cysts or pseudoarthrosis of the tibia. That is the anterolateral bowing of the tibia in the lower image. So that is how pseudoarthritis of tibia can present. Hemihypertrophy is another problem where you have like a filaria type of a limb, that is the excessive neurofibromas. So that is the enlarged leg due to neurofibromas. Pseudoarthritis of tibia, which we have already discussed. So that is the treatment is resection of the pseudoarthrosis. That is the area where there is false joint formation, and that part of the bone and soft tissue should be removed, and then you can do an Elizarov or a vascularized fibular graft or a intramedullary rod. Okay, so I hope you understood nicely. So neurofibromatosis, you all know it is associated with pseudoarthritis of tibia. Paget's disease is important. You should know Paget's disease has viral etiology. That is one. It has lytic, mixed and blastic stage, and you can have increased uptake in bone scan and pathological fractures. Meloriostosis is candle wax disease. Cleidocranial dysplasia, there is absence of clavicles. Okay, so that is in short about skeletal dysplasias. I hope you can write at least 2 to 4 mark question answers in whatever these topics are there. Right, thank you.